This presentation shows how a project to reclaim Shiloh Cemetery in Byron, Georgia started. The Shiloh trustees and students of Georgia Military College hope to see the project replicated to save other culturally significant sites. As years and people pass into memory, so do lost historic sites. Subdivision development encroached upon Shiloh Cemetery until neighbors reported vandalism. Other neighbors started researching and cleaning it, and interested community members joined each other to save it. Once the site of an active 19th century Methodist church, Shiloh's members moved to newer areas. Another population shift in the 20th century grew to surround acres on which early settlers buried their ancestors. Reggie Holloman kept his family plots cleaned for years after the church disbanded. His great-grandfather, David Holloman, served during the War Between the States, Company G, 8th Georgia Militia, also known as the Silver Grays of Houston County, and fought in the defense of central Georgia at Griswoldville. Mr. Holloman's grandmother was buried at Shiloh in 1961. One of the project high points was having the Holloman family return. Steve Holloman and family traveled from South Carolina for the event. Keeping a family plot is daunting, but Shiloh Cemetery covers 7 acres. As early efforts to uncover lost burials continued, neighbors reported teenagers vandalizing tombstones, and a police officer started his own research. The project grew with each discovery. Burials at Shiloh include early Middle Georgia family names like Kemper, Newell, Doyle, Etheridge, Bassett, Holloman, Fretwell, Brown, Tucker, Statham, and Gunn. Shiloh's veterans include soldiers who served in the War Between the States, Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. Of these, Luther Brown trained for World War I in Macon, but died during training. His younger relative became the godfather of soul, James Brown. Joseph Statham served in the famous 9th Cavalry as a true Buffalo soldier. His unit was in Cuba with Teddy Roosevelt during the Spanish-American War. New neighbors moved in and started research, documentation, and maintenance at the cemetery. Next, volunteers added a web page at shilohcemetery.info and a social media page. Shiloh descendants from around the United States sent information, leading to the discovery of more graves, and they sent historic photos of Shiloh Methodist Church. When the neighbors learned of a church survivor, they partnered with him to move the project forward. Later, a police officer returned with a professor. They saw a community service and learning project. Soon, a college partnered with the neighbors and survivors. The students found approximately 2 acres manicured. Exploration activities revealed the other 5 acres of burials, some marked, and hundreds marked only by non-native flowers growing in the forest and rows of east-west indentions in the earth. Students learned about their community while serving. Other community groups joined. Adaptability is the buzzword. The project provides basic guidelines that other organizations follow. At GMC, one of Robin's students participate during each academic quarter. Dublin students participate once or twice annually at Shiloh. And Eastman students have started a project in their home county. Social media and print media brought public attention, and the Shiloh trustees wanted more public access and protection for artifacts. Now the GMC Classroom Museum is open to the public by appointment. The collection includes antique tobacco jars, china pieces from Europe, soft drink bottles from the past century, a serving dish used at the church, artwork, and notebooks showing project details and photographs. Eastman's project involves a number of forgotten cemeteries and building an existing public library research collection. It differs from Shiloh in 2 ways. First, students work in a different area of their county during each academic quarter. And second, our mentor, Earl Wright, already has a library collection of documents. When our students add to that collection, he includes their names as researchers. Students of all ages participate. So as the Shiloh trustees teach the college students teach the younger participants. Each student, whether K through 12 or college, receives a community service letter. Artifacts are documented and preserved. Most pottery or china pieces are those that family members once used to bring flowers to place on a loved one's grave. However, the church often had fellowship activities outdoors, and farming occurred all around the property. So occasionally students find serving dishes or pieces of farming implements. Shiloh's one survivor, Mr. Reggie Holloman, told the students, "I joined the church in 1942. I was born in 1937. They used to christen the infants in the Methodist church, you know. I started down here to church ever since I can remember. We went to church here all through World War II. I tore the church building down, me and my farm crew. Part of it was fat lighter, put together with wooden pegs, and it never had a coat of paint on it. It had rough boards this wide. The inside was painted. It was painted white. It had that beaded ceiling and wooden shingles. It was a big old church with 2 doors. The ladies went out on one side and the men went in on the other. It never had electricity, no plumbing. That old tree right there, when it was smaller, it had rings in it where you tied the horses. They'd take them loose from the buggies. Of course, that was a little before my time, but the tree still had them old rings in it, and the tree just growed over them and all, and I'd be scared to get in there with a chainsaw. You'd probably hit one of those iron rings. A lot of times, they'd have a feed bag and feed the horses while they were in church. We had services once a month because we were circuit church with Byron in Powersville. We'd have church on this Sunday and next Sunday. If you wanted to go to church, you'd go to Powersville. You'd come to church about dinner time or right after dinner and stay all evening. Every now and then, we'd have dinner on the grounds. Down there, they had a ferry that crossed over the river. On some of these old maps, you'll find that ferry. If it wasn't for the people buried here, there wouldn't be a Warner Robins. Oral histories are treasures. People speaking from memory include details that a standard history book may miss. Students then encourage visitors to tell their stories of Shiloh. Students learn more about spoken and written language and how to document and store their findings. The project gains recognition as time passes and as we, too, become history.